The wind howled like a dying beast, cold and angry, blowing across the white desert of the frozen moon. Jay sat in the cockpit of his rusted freighter. Staring out at nothing, his ship's heater was barely working. Food was almost gone, and fuel just enough for one jump. He was broke, cold, and tired. But then, something moved on the scanner. A flicker, weak and small, nearly lost in static. At first, he thought it was a glitch. Just bad wiring or ghost signals. But it blinked again. Closer this time, a life sign, weak, dying. But real. He stood up, grabbed his coat, and ignored the voice in his head that said, "Don't." The outside air hit him like knives, freezing and sharp. The snow crunched under his boots as he followed the blinking dot on his wrist scanner. Then he saw her, half buried in snow. Her small body was shaking. Barely. She wasn't human, not even close. Her skin was pale blue, almost glowing, and her hair shimmered like frost. She wore thin rags that were soaked and torn. No shoes, no protection. One hand clutched her stomach. The other was reaching out like she had been crawling, her eyes, half open, locked on his face. Jace froze, staring at her. She was just a girl. Maybe 10, maybe younger. Alien, yes, but still a child. He knew the rules of this sector: don't get involved. Don't touch what isn't yours. But his legs moved before his brain did. He knelt, took off his coat, and wrapped it around her. Her body was ice cold. But her hand reached up and grabbed his. Weakly, she didn't speak. Just looked at him with tired, glowing eyes. Something in that look hit him hard, like a memory he didn't want to feel. He picked her up, held her close, and ran back to the ship, inside. He threw off his gloves, slammed the door shut, and turned every heater to max. The ship groaned, but responded. He laid her on the bunk, pulled out the med kit, and slapped a warming patch on her chest. The patch blinked red danger. She was freezing from the inside, lungs turning to ice. He cursed and grabbed the emergency plasma core. It was his last source of heat, meant for emergencies only. This counted. He plugged it into the wall, and the room warmed instantly. The girl twitched, her fingers curling slightly. He sat by her side, brushing melting snow from her face. "What happened to you?" he whispered, not expecting an answer. She didn't reply. But a single tear rolled from the corner of her eye. It was silver, like mercury, and it steamed as it touched her cheek. Hours passed. She slept. Breathing slow, shallow, but steady. Jace sat in the chair beside her, watching her chest rise and fall. The ship lights flickered. Warning of low power, he ignored it. He had sold everything just 2 cycles ago: his tools, his spare weapons, even his flight suit. All to keep the ship running a few more days. And now, whatever was left, he gave to her. He didn't know why. She wasn't his responsibility. She wasn't even his species. But something about her made him feel alive again. Like saving her gave him purpose. Like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't completely broken inside. The ship's console beeped softly. He stood and walked to the cockpit, checking the radar. A faint signal flashed in the distance just outside the atmosphere. He zoomed in, nothing there, or maybe something just cloaked. He didn't like it. Too clean, too quiet, too cold. He turned off external broadcasts and locked the ship down. If anyone was watching, they'd have to find him the hard way. Back in the room, the girl stirred, her fingers curling tighter. He leaned in, whispering, "You're safe here. All right." Her eyes fluttered open, glowing brighter now. She didn't speak, but her lips moved slowly. One word, soft and broken, came out. "Run." Jace's blood went cold. He stood still, the word echoing in his mind. What had he just brought aboard? Outside, in the white storm, something moved, unseen but watching, and deep inside the ship, something had begun to awaken. Asterisk, the ship's engines hummed low, like a worried heartbeat in the cold silence of space. Jace sat in the corner of the small cabin, staring at the sleeping alien girl. She was wrapped in 2 layers of thermal blankets, breathing slow and shallow. The warming patch on her chest blinked yellow, now better than red. But not good. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, just kept watching her. That one word, run, kept ringing in his ears. Run from what? Who was after her? Why was she alone on that ice moon? He leaned forward, studying her face again. It was beautiful in a strange way, not human, but soft, calm, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her skin had tiny silver lines along her cheeks and forehead, like faint tattoos or circuits, not scars, not paints. They were part of her, alive. Her breathing suddenly changed, a little faster now. He sat up straight, ready to help. But she didn't move, just whispered a sound. A soft hum, almost like a song. He didn't understand the words, but the melody was sad, full of pain and loss. Then her eyes opened. They glowed brighter this time, like 2 stars locked behind clouds. She blinked slowly and looked around. Confused at first, her gaze landed on Jace, and she didn't flinch. Instead, she just stared, silent and still. Jace raised his hands gently, like calming a scared animal. "Hey," he said softly. "You're safe. I found you outside in the snow." She didn't answer. Didn't even move, just watched. He stood and picked up the translator cube, activated it, and placed it beside her head. The blue light scanned her eyes, then her mouth, then her ears. Nothing. It made a soft error beep. "No known dialect detected," the machine said. Jace frowned. He'd seen hundreds of species across the edge of the galaxy. Some spoke clicks, others pulses, some just light, but never one the cube couldn't recognize at all. She sat up slowly, her hands trembling. Jace moved forward to help, but she backed away just a little. Still no words. No fear, either, just quiet, deep quiet. Like she was trying to understand him too. He placed a food pack near her. Along with a water pouch, she looked at them, sniffs them like an animal unsure of new smells. Then she picked up the water and drank, carefully, slowly, like she hadn't had clean water in days. Maybe longer. Jace felt a knot in his chest tighten. What kind of monster leaves a child like this to die? Suddenly, the ship shook just a tiny tremor, but enough to make them both freeze. He rushed to the cockpit, scanned the area. Still no signals, no ships, no drones, no storms. But something had touched the hull. He checked the outer cams. Nothing. When he returned to the cabin, the girl was curled in a corner, her arms wrapped around her legs. She wasn't crying, but her body shook. He approached slowly, knelt beside her. "It's okay," he whispered, "just a bump." "We're still flying." She peeked through her arms, her eyes glowing faintly again. He reached out, touched her shoulder lightly. She didn't pull away this time. He stayed beside her, not speaking, just breathing with her. Time passed, silent and soft. Then something strange happened. The silver lines on her skin began to glow brighter only for a second, then faded. The air in the cabin felt warmer. Just for that moment, the lights flickered, and the emergency battery recharged by 2%. Jace blinked, confused. He checked the system log. No power surge, no extra fuel, no reason. But it happened again when she closed her eyes. The silver light pulsed. The ship responded. She was healing the ship, or maybe the ship was responding to her presence. He didn't know what to believe anymore. Later, he tried asking her questions. "Do you know your name? Where are your parents? Who hurt you?" She just stared, silent, but her eyes softened with every question. She wasn't afraid of him. She just didn't know how to answer. Or maybe she wasn't allowed to. He showed her pictures of other planets, other species, even human children. She tilted her head, curious, but didn't point or react. Then he showed her a picture of the Syndicate's symbol, one of the cruelest factions in the galaxy. Her entire body stiffened. She didn't scream, didn't cry. But the glow in her skin pulsed bright blue and sharp. Jace turned the screen off quickly. But the message was clear. She knew them. She feared them. And they were involved in whatever had happened to her. That night, Jace locked down the ship tighter than ever before. Every hatch sealed, every signal scrambled. But sleep didn't come. He sat beside her as she drifted into sleep again, one hand resting near his. He watched her chest rise and fall, and deepen his heart. He made a quiet promise, no matter who she was, or what it cost, he would protect her even if the whole galaxy came knocking. The stars outside the window looked peaceful, cold and quiet, but inside Jace's chest, everything was tense, tight, waiting for something to go wrong. He couldn't stop thinking about the girl, the way she flinched at the symbol of the Syndicate. The way her skin glowed with blue fear. She was more than a lost child. She was hiding from something dark, something dangerous, and now? So was he. Jace needed answers. He couldn't sit here guessing while enemies might be closing in. So he did something stupid. He went back. The ship shuddered as it entered the frozen moon's orbit again. He had set the coordinates to the exact spot where he found her. Snow still covered the land, thick and white, but something was wrong. There were no footprints, no trails, no body-shaped hole where she had been. It was like she was never there. He stepped out of the ship, wrapped in his thickest coat. Scanner in one hand, pulse pistol in the other. The cold bit into him immediately. Sharper than before, but he pushed forward, following memory more than the scanner. His boots crunched the snow, leaving deep marks behind him. Then he stopped. The area ahead was burned. Blackened snow melted in strange circles. Like something had landed a door. Something powerful had been used. In the center of the circle, half buried in ash, was a metal shard. He knelt and picked it up, brushing it off. It was a piece of armor, thin but tough, etched with curved writing, Syndicate script. His breath caught. They had been here, maybe right after he left. Maybe while he was still watching the girl sleep, maybe. They were watching him now. Jay scanned the area, hand tightening on the pistol, but the scanner showed nothing, no signals. No movement, just silence. Too quiet, he turned to head back to the ship. But something shimmered at the edge of his vision. He spun around fast, pistol raised, nothing. He walked faster now, nearly jogging. The wind picked up behind him, and the snow began to fall harder. Then the scanner blinked just once, a flicker, a faint signal, not ahead. Behind, he stopped and looked over his shoulder. Still nothing, just snow and shadows, but he felt it. Someone was there. He broke into a run, heading back toward the ship. Snow whipped around him like claws, blinding and biting. The wind roared, louder than before. He reached the hatch, slammed his palm on the sensor, and dove inside as the door sealed shut behind him. He stood there, panting, frozen breath rising like smoke. Something had been watching him. He knew it, and it hadn't followed, not yet. Inside the ship, everything felt warmer, safer, but only just. He went straight to the cockpit and ran a deeper scan of the moon's surface. Nothing, no ships, no life signs, no drones. Whoever had burned the snow was gone, or hiding too well to detect. He took the metal shard and placed it on the console. The computer ran a quick match. Syndicate Field Tech, it said. Burn shielding plate. So the girl had been surrounded by Syndicate soldiers or hunters, and now she was in his ship. Sleeping in his bunk, breathing his air, if they found her once. They could find her again. Jace walked quietly into the cabin. She was still asleep, curled up tight. Glowing softly under the blanket, he sat near her. placing the shard down beside the bed. She opened her eyes slowly, saw the metal, and froze. Her breathing stopped for a second. Then she looked at him not in fear, but in guilt, like she knew what danger she brought with her. "It's okay," he said gently. "I went back. They're gone." She reached for the metal piece, touched it, and the glow on her skin pulsed blue and red. Images flickered in the air above it, not clear, but enough holograms made from her touch. From her memory, Jace watched in silence as a blurry scene appeared at camp. Dark figures around her, chains glowing. Her screaming silently, then a blast of light. And she ran, barefoot, into the snow. It ended there. He stared at the spot where the image had floated. Now empty again, his voice was low, rough. "You escaped," he said, "but they're still looking for you." She nodded slowly. Still no words, still no voice, but understanding passed between them like a silent bond. He sighed and leaned back in the chair, rubbing his face. "I should have left you," he muttered. Should have walked away, but he hadn't. He couldn't, and now, whatever she was, whatever they wanted from her, he was part of it too, that night. He set new coordinates for deep space, far from Syndicate patrol paths. He rerouted power to the cloaking Erewhon last use before the batteries died, if anyone came looking. They wouldn't find him easily, but deep in his gut. He knew this wasn't over, not even close. She sat near him as he piloted, her small fingers touching the controls. Curious, she smiled faintly for the first time. Just a tiny flicker, and for one moment, Jace felt something strange hope. But outside, in the silence of space, unseen eyes still watched. And the ghosts in the snow had not forgotten. Asterisk Jace sat in the pilot's seat, eyes fixed on the black void outside the window. The stars didn't move, but his thoughts did. Spinning like broken gears, the alien girl sat beside him now, her head resting lightly against the wall. She hadn't spoken a single word since that night, except the one. Run. Still, something about her presence made the ship feel warmer. Less empty, but it also made it more dangerous. He had taken a risk, bringing her aboard, and now he was taking an even bigger one, heading deeper into uncharted space. Far from Syndicate routes, away from known planets. No stations, no signals, no help, just blackness. The cloak was working. Barely. Power was low. Oxygen filtered carefully. Systems pushed to the edge, but it was quiet, for now. That was all he needed. She moved suddenly, jerking upright, her eyes wide. Glowing brighter than ever before, her body shook, like something inside was fighting to get out. Hey, what's wrong?" Jace asked, reaching for her. She didn't answer. Just clutched her chest and gasped, a light bright and sharp burst from the silver lines on her arms. He backed away, unsure, scared. Her skin was pulsing with energy. Glowing with strange patterns, the air grew heavy, electric, humming like a storm trapped in a room. "Stop," he whispered, even though he knew she couldn't. She cried out no words, just pain then. Silence, her body collapsed into his arms. Light fading, skin cooling again, but the room was changed. The walls of the ship shimmered faintly. His HUD flickered, then returned with clearer resolution. The battery reading jumped by 6%. The engine stopped whining and began humming smoothly. She hadn't broken the ship. She had healed it. Jace stared at her small frame in his arms, breathing fast, confused. What are you?" he whispered. She blinked slowly, her eyes tired, but still glowing faintly. Then, for the first time, she pointed at herself, then pointed at the ship's power core, then back to herself again. "You charged it?" he asked. She nodded, slowly. "Is that your power?" No answer, just silence. And then, her head dropped onto his chest, exhausted. Jace lifted her gently and carried her back to the sleeping bunk. Wrapped her in soft thermal blankets. Then he sat beside her, deep in thought. She wasn't just an alien girl. She was something rare. Something powerful, and someone knew it. That's why they had chained her. Hunted her and left her to freeze. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a threat, later, while she slept. Jace activated the encrypted emergency beacon. Not to call for help, but to reach an old friend. A contact who had worked deep inside the syndicate before turning his back on them. If anyone knew what she was, he would. The response came faster than expected. A coded signal blinked onto the screen. Jace tapped it open static at first. Then a grizzled voice broke through. Jace, you're a madman. You know that? Good to hear you too, Bray, Jace replied. Tired? You activated an old syndicate beacon. You think no one's watching that? I didn't have a choice, Jace said. I need answers. He explained everything. The ice moon, the girl, the strange glow, the healing light. The visions, the pain. Bray didn't interrupt, not once. Then he exhaled slowly, voice softer now. You found one? Found what? A Starborn. Jace frowned. What the hell is that? Bray's voice turned serious. Almost fearful. They're not common, Jace. They're born during cosmic storms, rare, ancient power. Not magic, just a different kind of energy. Jace looked over at the sleeping girl. Still wrapped in his coat? She's just a kid. Bray laughed. Bitter. That's how they all start. But if the syndicate gets her back, she won't stay that way for long. What do they want with her? To control her or end her, maybe both, Bray said. They fear what she could become. Jace was silent for a long time. Is there anyone else who can help her? No, Bray answered. Not anymore. Then I'll protect her, Jace said. Voice firm, Bray sighed again. Then you just made yourself the biggest target in this quadrant. The screen went dark. Jace turned toward the bunk. The girl's eyes were open, watching him. She had heard everything. She didn't smile. Didn't cry, just nodded slowly, as if she already knew what she was, and she knew the danger ahead. Jace leaned against the wall, arms crossed. He had nothing left, no credits, no allies, no plan, but he had her. And maybe that was enough, far outside the ship. Across the dark silence of space, a fleet stirred. Coordinates locked, engines warming. They had found the girl again, and they were coming. Jace didn't sleep that night, not because of the glowing girl curled in the bunk beside him. Not because of the warning from his old friend Bray. But because of the silence. It was too quiet out there in the black. The kind of quiet that came before something terrible arrived. The ship floated in the shadows of a shattered moon. A hiding place only smugglers or ghosts would know. Jace had landed there once, years ago, back when he ran stolen plasma cores and fake IDs. Now he was hiding for a different reason. Not for himself, but for her. She sat across from him now, sipping warm water and watching him closely. The glow in her skin had faded, but her eyes still held light. Light that didn't belong to a normal child. She still hadn't spoken again. But she didn't need to. Every movement, every glance, told him she understood more than he thought. Then the ship's radar pinged, a soft sound, but deadly. Jace turned to the console, fast, heart pounding, one ship, then two. Then 5, dropping out of FTL like knives from the sky. No ID codes, but he knew the shapes. Hunters. Syndicate bounty crews flew those ships. Lean and fast, equipped to catch and crush. They didn't come this deep unless they were sure of the target. Which meant they found us, Jace whispered. The girl didn't flinch. She simply walked over to the console, looked at the blinking red dots, and pressed her hand on the screen. The lights dimmed for a moment, then surged. Power levels jumped again, her doing. But even with full power, they were outnumbered 5-1. The freighter wasn't built for fighting. It was built for hauling junk and barely surviving space storms. Jace pulled up the ship's navigation grid. There was only one path that might work: a hidden jump corridor through a gas cloud filled with electrical storms. Insane, risky, but maybe, just maybe, he turned to her. "Hold on tight," he said. As alarms began to scream, the ship roared to life. Engines burning hotter than they had in months. Outside, the first hunter ship fired 2 blasts of red plasma. Jace dodged hard left, the entire ship shaking as heat grazed the hull. The girl fell back but caught herself, eyes glowing bright again. She reached out to the ship's walland. Suddenly, the shield surged. He watched as the energy field doubled in strength in real time. She was protecting them, not just healing, but fighting back. Another blast hit the shields, but this time the ship didn't even shake. Jace grinned, heart racing. "Okay, let's see what else you can do." He steered the ship into the storm corridor, lightning flashing outside like angry gods. The hunter ships followed, but slower, more careful. They knew how dangerous this area was. Jace used that. He twisted the ship between swirling blue clouds and blinding electric sparks. One of the hunter ships got too close to a pulse field boom. Gone in an instant. 4 left, but they were learning. Adjusting, getting closer, Jace needed more speed. More power. He turned to her again. Her face was tense, focused. Skin glowing with soft silver heat. She understood without words. She placed both hands on the floor, and a wave of energy pulsed through the ship. Every system jumped. Every thruster roared. The ship soared like it had wings. 2 more hunters were lost in the chaos of the cloud. Only 2 remained. Jace sent out decoy drones. Fake distress signals, static noise, anything to confuse them. But one of them fired again this time. It clipped their rear engine. The ship spun out of control. Alarms blaring, sparks flying. The girl screamed not with words, but with light. She stood in the middle of the ship and released a shockwave of glowing energy. The power surge hit every system, restarted the engine, recharged the batteries, repelled the hunter's tracker beam. She saved them again. Jace regained control just in time. The ship steadied, jumped forward, and finally, the storm cleared. He looked back. Only 1 hunter remained. It wasn't following. It had stopped. Then, turned back, retreating. Jace slumped in his chair. Breath shaking, they made it. They escaped. For now. The girl sat down beside him. Breathing hard, her skin dim again. She looked drained, like she had used too much of herself. Jace offered her water, and she took it slowly. He didn't speak for a long time. Just watched her in silence. Then he said quietly, "You're not just a child." She looked at him, eyes wide, but calm. "You're something they fear," he continued. "And now they fear me too." She reached out, touched his hand gently. Her skin was warm. Alive, not a machine, not a weapon. A being trying to survive. She didn't ask him to protect her. But he knew, deep inside, he already had. In the quiet of the ship, as the last thunder faded behind them, Jace whispered to the stars, "They'll keep coming, and somewhere." In the void, the syndicate listened and made their next move. The stars outside looked calm again. But inside the ship, everything felt heavy. Jace sat at the control panel, staring at the console with tired eyes. His hands were still shaking from the last jump. Behind him, the girl rested quietly, her skin barely glowing now. She was strong, but she was fading every time she used her power. She burned herself a little more. He needed help, real help. And there was only one person left who might give it. So he set a course for a dusty old planet on the edge of the neutral zone, a place where broken people went to hide. A place called Kellen's Reach. The flight was quiet. long, and full of questions. Jace didn't talk much, and neither did she, but sometimes she would sit near him and just watch. She watched how he flew, how he fixed broken wires, how he chewed food even when it tasted like dirt. She looked at him like she was studying something rare, maybe even something beautiful. He didn't know how to feel about that. Kellen's reach appeared in the window like a red scar in the dark. Old cities built into stone cliffs, markets full of dust, rust, and rumors. Jace landed his ship in a private bay and locked every system down. He didn't trust anyone here, not even the air. He carried the girl in his arms, wrapped in a clean blanket. She was awake, but too weak to walk. The people in the streets stared. Curious, but cautious, no one asked questions. But eyes followed them like shadows. Jace found the contact at the back of a dark bar. An old alien named Varan, one eye blind, one hand metal. Varan used to work for the Syndicate before he escaped and vanished. He owed Jace a favor, a big one. "You shouldn't have come," Varan growled as he poured Jace a glass of something sharp. "They'll trace you here. I need answers," Jace said. Now Varan's gaze shifted to the girl. She sat quietly beside Jace, eyes glowing faintly. Skin pale. When Varan saw her, he froze. His drink slipped from his fingers and shattered on the ground. "Starborn." He whispered. "So it's true," Jace said, voice low. "She's one of them." Varan nodded slowly. "There are only a few in the galaxy, and most were killed as infants. Why? Because they can reshape power, bend energy with emotion. Bring life where there's death," Varan said. "Or burn entire planets when they lose control." Jace looked down at her. She didn't look like a weapon. She looked like a child trying to survive. "She saved my ship twice," he said. "She saved me." Varan leaned closer. Voice like gravel. "You need to make a choice." "Jace, what kind of choice?" "Turn her in. Get a reward that'll buy you freedom for life," he said. "Or run, protect her, and make yourself the most hunted man in the galaxy." Jace didn't answer right away. He looked at the girl again. Her fingers were wrapped around his sleeve. Quiet and trusting. She didn't speak, didn't beg. But her eyes told him everything. She had no one else, just him. "What happens if they take her?" he asked. "They'll twist her," Varan said. "Break her. Use her until she's nothing but a weapon. And if I protect her?" "You'll die," Varan said without emotion. Eventually, Jace stood up. Heart pounding, he looked at the girl, then at the door. "I made my choice the day I pulled her from the snow," he said. "I just didn't know it yet," Varan sighed. "Then you better run fast, old friend." Jace nodded, then paused. "There's one more thing," he said. "If I go down, make sure the galaxy knows who she was, outside." The wind blew hot and dry. Jace carried the girl back toward the ship. His boots crunching on stone. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. He powered up the freighter, systems humming back to life. The girl touched the wall again, giving it a little spark. The ship responded like it loved her. As they lifted into the sky, Jace looked back one last time. He saw a group of Syndicate ships entering orbit, dark and sharp. They had tracked him. He pushed the engines hard and jumped into the void before they could lock on. Inside the cockpit, the girl looked up at him and did something she'd never done before. She smiled, not a big smile, just a small one. But it felt like fire in his chest. Warm and real. He smiled back. "Where to now?" he asked. She pointed at the stars, and for the first time, she whispered to soft words. "Home." "Someday," Jace nodded. "Not today, not yet, but someday." He gripped the controls and flew into the dark. Behind him, the Syndicate followed, ahead of him. Hope still flickered like a distant star. The stars rushed past the windows like silver rain. Jace sat in the pilot seat, tired but steady. Hands gripping the controls, the girl was asleep behind him, curled up under a blanket, glowing faintly like always. It had been 3 days since they left Kellen's reach. 3 days of hiding in asteroid belts, powering down systems, whispering through space. They knew the Syndicate was close. He could feel it in his gut, and he knew so could she. Each day she grew quieter, more distant. Her power flared when she had nightmares, or when she heard strange noises in the walls. But she never lost control, not fully. She was trying to hold it back for him. Jace saw the effort it took, and it broke his heart a little more every day. Then it happened. A red alarm blinked on the console. 1 ship at first, then 5, then 10. They had surrounded him. Dropped out of hyperspace like predators circling prey. The Syndicate fleet had found them. Again, Jace stood slowly. Walked to the back and knelt beside her. She opened her eyes before he spoke. She already knew. "They're here," he whispered. "They're not waiting this time." She looked at him. No fear, just quiet sadness. Then she stood. She walked to the center of the ship, where the core chamber glowed soft and blue. Jace followed, unsure what she was planning. "Don't push yourself," he said, voice shaking. "You don't have to prove anything." She turned and looked at him with eyes like twin galaxies. Then, for the first time since they met, she spoke a full sentence. Her voice was soft but clear. "You gave me your last warmth, Jace. Now I give you everything." Before he could stop her, she stepped into the energy chamber. The glass sealed around her like a pod. Her body began to glow. The silver lines on her skin bursting with light. The entire ship trembled, systems flashing. Core reactors rising beyond safety levels. "Stop!" Jace yelled, banging on the glass. "You'll burn yourself out." She looked at him one last time and smiled. Not sad, not scared, just grateful. Outside, the Syndicate ships began to fire. Blasts of plasma streaked through the black, aiming to crush the freighter in seconds, but the first shot didn't hit. It bent twisted midair and flew off into the stars. Then the second blast froze, hanging in space like glass. Then shattered like dust. Jace stared at the sensors. Something was wrong, or maybe something was finally right. His ship's systems began to shift on their own, glowing with a soft white light. Not just repaired, transformed. Old circuits turned golden. Wires hummed with clean energy. Every broken panel rebuilt itself in seconds. Then the shields pulsed outward once, twice, 3 times, and the Syndicate fleet stopped moving. One of their capital ships exploded without warning. No fire, no blast, just pure light. The others backed away fast. Scattering like insects, they had seen enough. They had found her power end. It was more than they could ever control. Inside the ship, the chamber opened. The girl collapsed forward, and Jace caught her. She was breathing, alive, but her glow was almost gone. Her skin pale, her voice weak. "I changed it," she whispered. "You're safe now." He held her tight. Heart pounding, tears burning in his eyes. "I didn't want safety," he said softly. "I just wanted you to live." The ship floated through silence, untouched. No enemies left to chase them. No hunters in sight, only stars ahead. Days passed. She slept most of the time, healing slowly. The ship was different now, faster, smarter, cleaner. It had bonded with her, reshaped by her power, and maybe so had he. One evening, she stood beside him at the cockpit window. Her hand rested on the glass, watching the stars. "Do you still want to find your home?" he asked. She nodded, then looked at him. "But not without you," she said. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "I was a broken man, hauling junk through dead space," he said. "Now I'm flying beside a miracle." She didn't argue. She just smiled. Together, they set a new course, not away from fear, but toward something better. And as the ship soared into the stars, carrying the last Starborn and the human who gave her hope, the galaxy whispered of a legend. Not of a soldier, or a hero, or a war machine, but of a man who spent everything he had to save one frozen girl and change the stars forever.